Welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here, really happy to welcome Phil Hester back. It has been far too long since I've had a conversation with Phil. You know Phil's wonderful artwork. He and Andy Parks, an excellent artist, penciler, inker team. They really broke through when they were working with Kevin Smith on things like the Clerks comic for Oni Press. And then, of course, they moved on to bigger and better things with Green Arrow. They put Green Arrow back on the map after, I think, a few years of Green Arrow being in the wilderness. It was a great run. They stayed on the book with Brad Meltzer and Judd Winnick as well. And then they jumped over to Nightwing and really made things happen with Devin Grayson. Really great stuff. Phil, thankfully, has also been writing as well as drawing, and he talks about finally getting those breaks to be, accepted as a writer. Lots of great things over the years, including Stronghold, his new Aftershock book. It's great to see him bring this concept back. It was briefly at Devil's Due. He gives you the full backstory of how it kind of came at a bad time for Devil's Due. But thankfully, Aftershock saw the value in it, and Phil has a long association with guys like Joe Pruitt, going back to the Caliber days. And we talk a lot about Stronghold and the point behind the book, but also some new ideas and other things coming up from Oni Press and a few other projects, and Phil's whole trajectory from when he really broke through. He also talks about those years in the 90s of boom and bust, and interesting stuff and interesting insight as always from Phil Hester on today's Word Balloon. It's all brought to you by Aftershock Comics, the industry's fastest-growing independent publishing company, and publishers of Stronghold, the new book with Phil Hester and Ryan Kelly. They're promoting this year, 2019, as the year of reading dangerously. You know about Aftershock. They've got great titles, things like Animosity from Marguerite Bennett, A Walk Through Hell from Garth Ennis, Adam and Aidan Quinn doing fantastic work as well, Dark Arc from Cullen Bunn, Baby Teeth from Donny Cates. Well, they're going to push the envelope even further this year with new releases and ongoing series that will challenge your imagination. They work with top writers and artists, and among the new books that are coming out in 2019, there's Oberon, a new supernatural series by Ryan Parrott, Dark Red from Tim Seeley, also Out of the Blue and Horde, and today's subject, of course, Stronghold with Phil Hester and Ryan Kelly. Now, in the weeks and days ahead, we'll be talking to more Aftershock creators about their books. You don't have to wait. Check out full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond codes on these books to order through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. And Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners via Patreon. Thank you, League. Crowdfunding helps and keeps Word Balloon going, keeps me going, and I really appreciate the support. Everyone has really come through. I keep getting new people also jumping on and willing to subscribe to Word Balloon. Word Balloon's free, but if you like what you hear and want to help out the cause, you can go to patreon.com/wordballoon or go to the Word Balloon page and click on the Patreon ad right there at wordballoon.com. Thank you, League of Word Balloon listeners. All right, let's get into our conversation now with the great Phil Hester here on Word Balloon. Phil Hester, I'm ashamed of how long it's been, man, but welcome back to Word Balloon. It's great to talk to you.
John Suntress, how long has it been? I don't even know.
It has been years, Phil, and I'm sorry because
it's possible.
Well, we've had some little setbacks here and there, and we've missed each other at conventions, and but I'm glad that it sounds like you're doing okay right now, and I'm on the mend as well. We were talking about it off the air, and I'm excited for your brand new Aftershock series, especially the fact that you're working with Ryan Kelly. Tell me how the two of you getting together happened.
I love Ryan. Well, you know how it is. If you're in the Midwest, sort of the entire Midwest is sort of your local scene.
Yeah.
Your comic scene. So for me, the comic scene, I'm in Iowa, so for me it extends in this crazy kind of ovoid shape from like Chicago to Minneapolis to Omaha to Kansas City.
Yep. I'm shaking my head. Absolutely, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all I consider that my scene.
Yeah.
And I've known Ryan since I think he's only like 10 years younger than I am. But to me, that makes him a kid forever.
I hear you.
And I feel like I've known him since he was a kid. And I've always thought he was extremely talented, and we've always been sort of on the lookout for something to do. But, great for him, but bad for me that he's always been in really high demand.
Yeah.
And I feel like I caught him in a moment of weakness and struck, like, oh, you're not doing anything right this second? Okay, come with me. and I kind of hustled him over to Aftershock to do Stronghold together.
That's fantastic, man. No, I'm really excited, and I long admirer of Ryan's work, going back to Local with Brian Wood back in the day. That's the first time he showed up on my radar. And
Demo,
and Demo. Was it Local or Demo?
Both.
It was both. Okay, yeah. Okay. Very cool. Yeah, again, you're right. Yeah, I forgot about Demo. Man, and that was like right around the time, I think, when I was starting the podcast, too. And really had like the antenna up for a lot of that stuff. So Stronghold from Aftershock. Give us the elevator pitch on that.
Well, if you were a very observant comic book buyer, you might recall probably almost a decade ago a book called Stronghold that I did with a buddy named Tyler Walpole, and we got one issue out. It was a Devil's Due joint, and we got one issue out before Devil's Due kind of. They've had their ups and downs too, and it was kind of one of their down moments, and they sort of had tracked a little bit. And so they pulled the plug on it even just after the first issue, and it reverted to us. And it's like, I can't give up on a story. Once I have a really good story in mind, I can't give up on it. So I kind of took it back and retooled it and reworked it. And Tyler became a much better known fantasy painter. He like paints stuff for like Wizards of the Coast and his own print series. You see him at a lot of conventions.
I was going to say, didn't we go to dinner with Tyler when like 9 of us went to like Miller's Pub and everything, 1C2E2?
Yeah.
Okay, because I got to tell you, one of my best friends, Chuck Cavan, loves his art and still goes to his table all the time, and it's so funny. And you're right. I know I saw Tyler last year at C2E2. So, if not the year before, but absolutely.
Yeah. And he's got a new thing coming out called Blood of Dragons, which it looks really exciting. But
very cool.
When we were trying to start this, he was just a baby, artist, and so I took it back and retooled it, and it's one of those things, like the idea just wouldn't go away from me. And when Ryan was available, I thought Ryan would really click here. And we got Tyler's blessing, and Tyler still owns a piece of the property, and we found a way to make it work at Aftershock. But as for the elevator pitch,
but that's all. But I like all that. No, seriously, I didn't remember that being at Devil's Due, and like you said, I do remember that period for Devil's Due, and they are still, I think, just crawling back, frankly. And I mean, Josh, I know Josh Blaylock, again, another local guy. So for me. But so now
they found a way to bounce back. Yeah. Which I always want to see.
Absolutely. So, but let's hear the story.
So, I mean, everyone's familiar with these sort of like hero discovered kind of journeys. Like a guy or a kid has a hidden destiny that's sort of revealed by fate, and they take up the mantle, and they go through their Luke Skywalker or Paul Atreides kind of journey where they find out the truth about themselves and their powers, and they King Arthur it, they pull the sword from the stone.
Sure.
And or even Peter Parker goes that same way, Harry Potter. And there are complications, and there price to be paid by that hero for that hero's journey. And I wanted to take that farther. I wanted to explore that in another way, in that what if somebody was set on this sort of hero's journey path, but the price to be paid wasn't by the hero, but everybody else on Earth. So let's say you have a hidden destiny, but your hidden destiny actually should stay hidden. It's really bad news for everybody.
So it sounds like it's a villain's journey more than a hero's journey.
Well, almost. It's like, should you pursue that? I mean, it's the only way you're ever going to feel fulfilled and whole, but is claiming your identity worth a lot of collateral damage to not only the people that love you, but basically everybody. And that's kind of a thing that people wrestle with today, in terms of like, a lot of people are kind of questioning everything about their identity, and they're searching for a way to express themselves in a lot of ways that society has kind of quashed in the past.
Yes.
And a lot of people know that there's a heavy price to pay for that. And not just by themselves, but sometimes by their family.
Sure.
And this is that story sort of writ large. And it's about a guy who's kind of sleepwalking through life, kind of vaguely aware that there's something more to him. And when he gets goaded into like a kind of a heroic action, he realizes he's probably not a human being. And more so that there is a secret society, sort of equal parts shield and sort of a cult that is dedicated to making sure he never finds this out about himself. And it's their job to sort of move in the background and make sure he never gets put in situations where he's going to accidentally learn that he's this sort of immortal figure.
Wow.
And that is complicated further by the fact that one of his main handlers is sort of a younger woman in a position to interact with him daily, who winds up falling in love with him. And so that further complicates things. And not only is it a matter of is discovering her identity worth all the collateral damage, we compound that with, from the girls, from Claire's point of view, is pursuing a relationship, is pursuing love worth all that collateral damage that you're going to inflict on the world too. Wow. So it's about these characters having to face those kind of choices.
Interesting.
And of course there'll be aliens and monsters. And
is she in on the secret?
Yes. Everybody in this cult knows what he is. And everybody in this cult is trying to keep him from figuring it out.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. Almost
so
like
basically it's basically S.H.I.E.L.D. dedicated to micromanaging one person's life.
Yeah, that's it. It's like S.H.I.E.L.D. meets the Truman Show almost, or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. Very cool. That sounds great, man. Wow. And it's got a little Cobra in there too. It sounds like the DC Hydra cult that came in the 70s, and Bendis
exactly.
I know is playing with right now in Superman.
Right. It's sort of this hybrid, half religious cult, half high-tech secret society.
Wow.
But the real crux of it is that Claire, who is really our second lead more than a supporting character, is she has this sort of crisis of faith where she's not quite sure, that she thinks maybe we're all, everybody in this cult's insane, and we're projecting on this poor son of a bitch who's like an insurance adjuster in St. Louis. Maybe he's not an elder space god. Maybe he's just this poor sap, and we've all lost our minds.
That's hilarious.
And when she goes to sort of prove or disprove that fact to herself, that's when wheels come off for everybody.
Interesting. Is it a limited series? Is it an ongoing? What's your plans for it?
Yeah, I think the model at Aftershock now is to do everything in these sort of 5-issue seasons. And if the sales warrant it, to continue with a second season.
Okay.
And the early numbers we're getting back on number 1 are really encouraging. So
that's awesome.
Hopefully we'll keep plugging away. I mean, there's a lot of story to tell, just in terms of the relationship between the two leads, and sort of every adventure they go on sort of reveals a little bit more about his past.
Okay. Does the society have like a kind of, cultish kind of uniform in the way of the Cobra followers or Hydra, or
they do. I mean, when they're out among us, they look like normal people.
Sure.
But when they get together in their headquarters, it's sort of there's a scene in the first issue where Claire goes to report back for duty after a year off. Everybody in this cult gets a Rumspringa. And she comes back after Rumspringa to decide whether or not she wants to go back in. And to do that, she goes to basically a FedEx ship center. And she shows her little tattoo that shows that she's a member of this secret society. And they're like, oh, yeah, come around back. And we get to see that underneath the FedEx ship center, there's basically S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. Sure.
That's classic Man from U.N.C.L.E. When they would go into the tailor shop and they're the cleaner, and Uncle was behind there. It's so funny. I literally in the last couple of weeks I have a pirate copy of the TV movie they made 10 years after The Return of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. Actually, it was 20 years later.
Yeah.
And Robert Vaughn, when it first goes back to Uncle and everything, he goes to the tailor shop, and it's like, I'm here to go in the back. And the tailor's like, what the hell are you talking about, man? And he's like, I've been here 15 years. He's like, I've got the wrong location. And then he finds out that Uncle has moved,
right.
And now it's got a different location. But yeah, there you go, man. No, I love that. That's I love that classic spy trope. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's sort of a mashup of all this sort of like, there's elements of cosmic horror, there's elements of espionage, and there's a lot. I'm not joking. There are monsters and aliens in it there, but really at the heart of the whole thing is this kind of bizarre love story between a woman who's basically fallen in love with, the object of veneration of her religion.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, and it's an interesting thing to play with, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a good way to kind of cover territory I haven't really covered before, because I've dealt with relationships before in my book, but it's always established relationships. It's always married couples or families, and it's kind of fun to watch one born, build one up from the ground.
That's cool. So are Tyler's designs still being used? Is Ryan getting a chance to design stuff as well?
No, we're letting Ryan kind of like make things up from the ground up.
Okay.
And really, we didn't want to preserve too much from the first issue, from the original series, because it is its own animal now.
Sure.
A lot of things have changed in that first pass. I hope I'm a better writer.
I was going to say, you're likely a different writer now. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I learned to kind of shut up and let the pictures tell more of the story, and streamline things here and there. So, and also shift the focus of the story a little bit, because I think the first time out we ourselves were falling a little bit into those hero discovered kind of tropes, and we really wanted to subvert that with a new take.
I gotcha. No, that's cool. That sounds great, man. So who recruited you, Joe or Mike?
Boy, I can't remember this time out. Well, Joe's the reason I'm at Aftershock, period.
Certainly, because that's right. You've got a long association with Joe, don't you?
Yeah, I've been working with Joe since like the Calver days.
Yeah.
Way back. And when he started, and I was with him before Aftershock was Aftershock even. We had this sort of fits and starts, but we were trying to get this sort of more artist and writer centric co-op going before Aftershock, and it kind of never gelled. But Joe took that framework and found investors and created Aftershock with it.
That's excellent, man.
Yeah.
Well, I've always admired.
Joe, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So I have a long history with Aftershock, having just drawn Shipwreck there, and I wanted to keep working with Mike Martz, so I pitched them another thing, and this is the one they jumped on.
That's excellent. Well, tell me about Shipwreck too.
Shipwreck's a book year and a half ago, I think.
Okay.
I did with him that Warren Ellis wrote, and it's available as a trade now, and it's just coming out in Europe as well just now.
Oh, cool.
And it's a typical Warren Ellis thing. It's kind of oblique and scary and stark, but it's about a brilliant scientist who invents a way to teleport because he knows that humanity is going to run Earth into the ground. And he thinks, hey, maybe we can all sort of, move over one dimension to a better Earth. Maybe there's a way we can all just sort of, open this dimensional doorway and step onto another planet and then wreck that one, I guess. But in some of those initial experiments, he winds up on a planet that is very, very hellish, not in a Dante's Inferno kind of way, but in a sort of the prisoner kind of way.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, a world that seems almost designed to torment him and him alone.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah,
wow.
So it's really kind of an extended meditation on how personal torment can take physical form. And so you're never really sure if this stuff is happening in this guy's head or if it's really happening, if he's gone anywhere or if he thinks he's gone somewhere.
Wow.
But by the sixth and last issue, it lands this kind of hard science fiction ending.
Okay.
That, I think satisfies people that are in for the long haul. But the main thing you're there for are these kind of very bleak tone poems that both Warren and I sort of weave throughout the issue.
Was that the first time that you drew for Warren and worked with Warren?
No, I did. We did a thing for Oni back in the day called the Operation.
Okay, interesting. That's cool.
That was very, very. Boy, I don't know how to describe it. It was pretty close to. I don't want to say it was like Global Frequency, but it was sort of like his idea of a bunch of specialists in weirdness working at a government level,
okay.
all dealing with this weird stuff popping up all over the earth. And it was meant to be a spin-off into a series, but I think that was about the time that I had a kind of a bad breakup with Oni, and over Deep Sleep or over dumb movie rights issues. Since resolved, I get along with them now, and I'm working on a book for them right now.
Oh, that's great.
But at the time, it was like they pulled the plug on everything I was doing there.
Ooh.
And yeah, it was weird.
Well, all right. Now, before
there's a movie guy that's not there anymore.
Okay.
It was kind of his
doing,
throwing his weight around. Yeah,
I gotcha. Okay, because all right, and I'm sure we'll say this at the end as well. But Stronghold debuts this coming week, correct?
Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday.
Okay, great, excellent. This will likely come out Wednesday morning, so you can find Stronghold at your local store, and if not, make sure that you talk to your guy and get them to order it because it's brand new, and also track back and get what was it? What was the Warren? Shipwreck. Absolutely, man. Very cool. I did want to talk about your early days at Oni because we've never really. But first of all, let's talk about the new thing that you got going at Oni.
Yeah, it's unannounced because it's taking so long. We want to wait till there's more of it done.
Okay.
There are two of the 5 issues in the can. But at the pace we're making them, that's still not enough to announce yet, I don't think.
All right.
But it's a science fiction horror thing, kind of a kind of in the vein of Solaris, maybe.
Oh, interesting.
But with more, it's like Solaris, but with kills. So,
all right.
So not quite Event Horizon level of horror, but it's kind of a heartfelt. Like I try to make everything heartfelt, but it's kind of a science fiction horror story that has kind of a metaphysical bent to it, and it's called Varuna, which is the name of a planetoid in sort of the Kuiper belt around the solar system.
Oh, cool! Oh, wow. Is that like where I forget the phrase? Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about the Earth-like planets that are.
No, it's not an Earth-like planet.
It's a planetoid, as you say, but
yeah, it's set far enough into the future that the solar system is pretty effectively explored. I guess it's sort of like the Expanse. I guess I would, if people are familiar.
Oh, very cool.
Like people are moving around the solar system freely.
Okay.
But still going to the Kuiper belt is still like a big deal. All right. It's about a ship that gets lost out there, and then a rescue crew that is sent out to essentially recover them. They know they're not going to rescue anybody, but they want to recover them and see what went wrong.
I see. Oh, interesting.
And Russell Rowling is drawing the heck out of it. It's beautiful. And if you're not familiar with Russell's stuff, he drew a really awesome book for Oni in the past called Petrograd, which was pretty incredible. and he's coloring it as well, and it looks really amazing.
That's cool.
And, yeah, it's sort of I kind of wanted to do a book that was I'm a fan of like things like 2001, where it's grounded in a very hard science fiction reality, but these characters that are awash in that reality still wind up facing these kind of transcendent moments. And I really wanted to explore what would happen to their technology in that transcendent moment. Like, if it transforms a human being, what does it do to all the technology that's with them at the same time? Ooh. And does the technology transcend?
Interesting.
And what happens to it? So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. All right, now you bring up 2001, because immediately when you said that that's what they were going to investigate, I immediately think of the sequel, the 80s sequel. And you and I are close enough in the same age that when the sequel came out, it was controversial. I liked it. And I mean,
I did too. But I just didn't think of it the same way. I just thought, here's a fun adventure movie, a cool fun adventure movie that's not going to ever be as deep, and no one's ever going to have a religious experience at 2010.
Exactly. Well, that was the interesting thing, and it's funny. It was just on Turner, I'd say within the last month or so. And I was thinking about that, and it's like, do I still like this movie? And it's like, yes, I do still like this movie. It's a fun, like you said, straight-up 80s sci-fi adventure movie. But it is so far from the existential experience of 2001. And, it's interesting, because it is. It's like, it's checkers to 2001's three-dimensional chess, really.
Correct, yeah. But it's still fun. It's still great performances and good action, and it's and you get to see some old friends pop up again, so it's
absolutely,
it's definitely.
Yes, and that's the thing. It's like the characters from 2001 that survive and are in it and everything are just like show up for a very kind of bubblegum but still fun and interesting movie. And Lithgow's great in the movie, and Bob Balaban, Helen Mirren, of course, Roy Scheider.
Yeah, it's great all the way around.
Absolutely, man. That's funny. Oh God. That's funny, because literally it's been on my mind in the last few weeks because I just saw it again, and I'm like, this is good. I still like this movie.
I'll defend it too.
Yeah, what the hell? I mean, because a lot of times I was just talking about with Gabe Hardman, and sometimes you go back to old movies and you realize that it's one thing when you saw it at the moment, and you go back and you're like, maybe not. Maybe it wasn't as good as I thought it was when I first saw it.
Right.
So I've been completely, because of my health thing, I haven't seen many new things, and I'm really, other than my screeners I got from the Screen Actors Guild, because my union is part of SAG. So so I get that's my little perk is I know. Who knew? I mean, well, I say that, and then of course I talk to guys that are in the Writers Guild that are comic book guys and stuff, and they get like twice as many screeners this weekend and everything.
Meanwhile, I pay to go to the movies like a normal person.
I understand. Well, that's the thing. I mean, so I've seen BlacKkKlansman, I've seen Vice, of the big movies that I wanted to see. Saw Beautiful Boy, the Carell movie. But
so
no, I'm not complaining. I appreciate it, and it's cool. But I feel under informed as we get into Oscar season, or we're in Oscar season, obviously. So, I don't know.
You'll never be as clueless as I am. I mean, I know about these movies, and I don't know if I could go back in time and tell like a 15-year-old me that there would be a humongous blockbuster Aquaman movie, but you weren't going to bother to see it, I would be like, what hellish future are you from?
I have not seen Aquaman yet either, I confess. I did see Spider-Verse, and I enjoyed it.
I did see that, and I loved it, yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, I agree. And really, I think this is the first time I've talked about Spider-Verse on the air. So, yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, oh my God. I mean, really, it really is. And it is so great that animation is going in the directions that it's going in. And we take it for granted sometimes because we get so many Well, there's the kids' movies, and the kids' movies are great, and they're for kids. God bless them. That's fantastic. But, it's like every now and then, you get something that you're like, oh, my God, what was this? And they can do stuff like this. This is great. And I felt that way about Spider-Man, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's probably opening the door for, Spider-Verse is fit for kids, too. It's
Absolutely.
entertaining for adults, but it's fit for kids, too. But I think it probably opens the door for American audiences to go see some animated features that aren't meant for kids on any level.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed.
It shows that sort of complex level of storytelling that, that
Miyazaki and the anime people.
Anime's been dealing with for decades.
Totally. Yeah, I know. Remember 10 years ago with I'm assuming it was around 10 years. Actually, it was probably longer. The Animatrix and those little shorts. And you're right, because that really blew my mind. I mean, Akira and things like that, and the classics, and some anime. I got to be honest, I'm not a huge anime person. I've got my little pet enjoyments here and there, but I certainly respect the talents of people like Miyazaki. And am I saying his name right?
Miyazaki.
Miyazaki. Thank you. See, there we go. Everyone listening is like Miyazaki.
I'm probably saying it wrong too.
I think you're right. Well, anyway. As I said, I don't even know if we traveled in the old days much when we first spoke, but I figure it's been long enough since our first conversation and stuff. I was thinking about just your beginnings and stuff, and as you say, you were at Caliber, and I'm interested because the first time I was aware of you and Andy was when you guys were working with Kevin Smith on Clerks.
Oh yeah.
And I know we talked a bit about Green Arrow back in the day, but obviously, again, it goes back to Oni and Clerks. How did that happen? How did you guys all get together?
Well, Andy and I have been working together forever since I was 20, I think. We met at a convention in Kansas City, and we sort of saw we were on the same wavelength aesthetically, and we were sort of in the same places in our careers, and we just sort of, and also we liked each other, so. We became sort of artistic partners and very good friends at that point.
How much stuff did you do with Andy before you got to Kevin?
See, that was the tough thing. We each had our little flirtations at the big two. We found little gigs here and there. I was drawing Swamp Thing and he was inking Catwoman, but they wouldn't let us be together.
Interesting. Who was Andy inking Catwoman for back then? Was it Darwin?
Jim Balin.
Oh my God, way back. Okay, yeah.
Way back. And that's also a time when Andy was out on the East Coast working. He was working in Mike Manley's studio.
Oh, wow.
And I was still here in the Midwest, and I had my kids. But I was doing Swamp Thing, and I was doing, like stuff at Oni and Caliber, before that even.
Okay. Who was
Andy
writing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, I was going to ask who was writing Swamp Thing when you were drawing it.
Mark Miller.
Okay, sure.
I drew the Mark Miller run of Swamp Thing. Yeah.
Okay, goddamn. All right, yeah. Because again, I think this was. So, what years were these? Were these late 90s?
I want to say mid 90s.
Mid 90s. Okay, because that was my wilderness period where I wasn't reading everything, and because I really didn't come back until like 98, 99.
Right. So this is definitely before that.
Okay.
And before that, even Andy and I had done a mini series at Dark Horse called Freak Some More, based on the Tom DeHaven novel. And that's sort of when Andy and I found our voice, I think. But then DC immediately split us up and put us onto separate things. and it wasn't until we were doing Clerks at Oni and then sort of developed a working relationship with Kevin through that gig. And that came about largely through Bob Schreck and Joe Nosemack and Jamie Rich and the guys at Oni.
Okay, so how did Bob come across your stuff?
Bob had always, when Bob was at Kamiko, he tried to hire me for something.
Oh, wow.
A long time ago. I think he tried to hire me to work on the sequel. And this is in the weeds, man. There was a book called, I want to say Blood Scent.
Okay.
His brother wrote it, and Gene Colan drew it, the first miniseries.
Wow.
It was like a modern vampire tale. And then it was time to do the sequel, and Gene was unavailable. And at the time, I was kicking around doing like backups in Nexus and The Badger, and doing shorts for Malibu and miniseries there, places like that.
Cool.
And Bob tried to hire me for that, I think, and it didn't work out. Or I think Kamiko went under.
Sounds like it as far as the timing. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But Bob always had his eye out for me, and he brought us on to work on that Clerks one shot, and he actually brought us on to work on a Mallrats sequel. We were gonna draw Kevin's screenplay for Mallrats 2.
Hilarious.
And we did a bunch of test art for it, and they really liked that. But for some reason, it didn't happen, and they decided instead to shift us over to do the Clerks of Lost scene. And that's how we got to know Kevin. And so Kevin, when Green Arrow came up, I think I've told this story so many times, but he wanted Joe Quesada to draw it. And Joe Quesada got this other job about that time.
Yeah, I seem to remember something big happening at Marvel. I think it was becoming editor-in-chief, obviously.
Right.
Because of the success of Marvel Knights and right. among the Marvel Knights series, for younger people who may not know, obviously Joe and Kevin. Before Kevin made the big splash with Green Arrow, he had the big run on Daredevil, or I should say, I guess the story arc with Daredevil. And yeah, if there was, I think probably the biggest star of Marvel Knights was that Daredevil comeback, and that's certainly what got my attention up. And it was like, Daredevil's good again. Okay, great. Right, and wow, Kevin Smith's writing it. That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah. And so Kevin was like, he wanted Joe, and Joe's like, well, I'm running Marvel now. and so I think he just went down the list of comic book artists he knew, and I was next. And so he pitched it to DC, and thankfully Shrek was his guy, and Shrek liked Andy and I already.
Yeah.
And Shrek really, I have to look, I owe Shrek, I can never repay Shrek what I owe him. But he really went to bat with us for DC, because DC did not want us to draw a comic book. They wanted somebody more, I guess we consider mainstream.
Yeah, traditional. Because you're right. Because that was the period, if I may, and I don't mean to step on your story. I want to hear it, obviously.
No,
but
hey, you're right.
You're right too, because now it's almost a given that you get more experimental art on mainstream books. But I do know in that early 2000s, late 90s period, it wasn't the norm, and it was tough to get things like that. Sean Martinborough, I thought, on when he was working with Greg Rucka on Batman, it's like, well, this is very different. And the same thing with you doing Green Arrow, because for years you had Mike Grell, obviously, and he had put his stamp on Green Arrow. I mean, and it was a very traditional style.
And Rick Hoberg drew it for a while, and then Rodolfo DiMaggio, all guys that were like very rooted in traditional illustration techniques. And it's funny you should mention that, because that's when Shrek went to DC to say, this guy can do this. Part of what he showed them was the 2 issues of Detective that I did filling in for Sean Martinborough during that Rucka Martinborough run.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't even realize that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Because it was that great bouncy, I mean, again, it was so, there was a feeling of Dick Sprang, and I don't know if you felt that way when you were drawing Detective.
No, I have a kind of intractable, like, there are two poles to my work, and one of them is, despite what I consider influences and what I want my work to be, I'm studying Toth all the time.
Yes.
And, studying Kriegstein, and I hope that is visible in my work. Studying Kirby, Eisner, but from when I was a kid, these are these 2 inescapable North and South poles pulling at my style, because I saw them when I was little. And one of them is Bernie Wrightson, and the other one is Joe Staton.
Oh, fantastic. Of course. Of course. Wow.
One end
Phil, I've never made that connection. That's fantastic.
Yeah, one of them is dark and creepy and, bent in on itself and noodly. And the other one is bouncy and bright. And those are pretty irreconcilable styles.
I understand.
Yeah. That's why
absolutely.
That's why my work is such a mess.
No, but that's fantastic. That's the kind of cross-pollination that creates its own style. That's wonderful. And man, I never really thought about Joe Staton, but you'll forgive me. The Rubik's Cube just, became solid on every side for me. I'm like, of course it's Joe Staton inspired. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so there's like this, like, no matter if I'm drawing something that's really dark and really brutal and angular or whatever, there's still going to be this liveliness, this lively bounciness to it. And if I draw something fun and beautiful, there's still going to be a dark, angular bent to it. That's just intractable. Something that's intractable about my work. And Green Arrow is where Andy and I just learned to stop fighting it and love it and go with it. And so that's sort of when we came to most people's attention. But at the time, we'd been working in comics I'd been working in comics since 1987.
Damn.
Yeah, in college. I was in college.
Yeah. So were you doing... tell me what you were doing back then even.
I was doing it was during the black and white explosion that followed the Turtles.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know if you remember that time very well, but we went from having a handful of publishers to having scads of publishers overnight.
Yes.
Because these guys figured out, I can charge the printing of one comic book for $2,000 on my Visa card. And back then, everything was a lock to sell 10,000 copies at least. And I will make back $6,000 every time I put out a comic. And so overnight, there were just publishers springing up.
Yep.
And if you could draw it all, and I barely cleared that bar, you could get work. And I started working at a little place called Silver Wolf Comics, which is where Ron Lim started, Tim Vigil started, Brandon McKinney, quite a few people, but we all started there.
That's
sort
excellent.
of and I think I was making like $30 a page, but like in college, that's like, it's like I found a treasure chest,
Sure. And that, you're right, that period, God, I was reading Amazing Heroes back then. And
that's where my first work came out.
Amazing Heroes?
They used to print those pinups in the back that people submitted.
Yes.
And they would pay you, believe it or not, my first comics paycheck is from Fantagraphics. Because they would give you, I think, $4.95. I think that was the payment. You got $4.95 if they ran one of your pinups.
Now, is $495 or $4.95?
No, $4.95.
Hilarious. Oh my God, that's fantastic! But again, for first-time artists,
oh yeah, I was just ecstatic to see something in print.
Totally get it, absolutely.
Yeah. And that all came about like in the '80s and the late '80s, and so I sort of kind of.
What did you draw? What character did you draw?
Oh gosh, I think the first thing I submitted a ton of stuff. Like I just flooded them with pinups. I think the first one they printed was like a Mr. Monster gag.
Oh my God, I loved Mr. Monster.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was Mr. Monster surrounded by the monsters of the Marvel and DC universe.
Hilarious.
Like him being threatened by them.
Sure.
It was either that or a Dark Side portrait, one or the other. But like I'd sent those in. I sent a Badger and a Joker, and they ran them all.
That's amazing.
And it was like just heady days for me because like I just gone to college and I just found my comic shop on campus, and it was just such a thrill to like go into the comic shop and bring my work up to the clerk.
Sure, absolutely. I understand because when I was writing boxing for Bert Sugar and Boxing Illustrated, same experience, man. I got paid next to nothing. But it was the thrill of being in print and being able to go to a store and find the magazine and be able to buy it and show my family and my friends and go.
Oh yeah,
I'm in print. I'm a real writer.
It went a long way. And about that same time, I started doing editorial cartoons for a campus newspaper as well.
Cool.
So I was just sort of like University of Iowa.
Okay. Oh wow, excellent.
I started doing for the Daily Iowa. I started doing. In fact, I remember this helps me date it. I did my first cartoon ran on the very first Martin Luther King Day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So,
Damn.
yeah,
And appropriate for this month, being Black History Month. Absolutely. Wow.
And appropriate to remind everybody how old I am.
Yeah, it's okay. Don't worry about it, buddy.
So yeah, I just kind of bumped around those black and white, those tumultuous black and white explosion, and then the speculator boom, all that time, like in the 90s, and kind of rode those ups and downs through Dark Horse and Malibu and Kitchen Sink and places like that.
What were some of the titles? That's so funny. I literally just talked to Dennis Kitchen back before I got sick in December, and just put that out. And it was a great conversation. I really enjoyed talking to him and hearing about his business model and how he got started and everything. But during that speculation period, what were some of the titles that you worked on?
Oh my gosh! Well, at Infinity.
Hilarious.
I worked on a comic called The X Mutants.
Now that's the kind of Now that's one of the titles that I do remember seeing in the back of Amazing Heroes.
Right. Ron Lim started there, and then I came in and kind of mopped up a little bit. And I was inked by a young whippersnapper named Jimmy Palmiotti.
Hilarious.
And I just, and I did a book for Malibu about the time that Image was blowing up. In fact, I did a book called Rust with my friend Steve Miller, and with Andy. It was one of the few times Andy and I got to work together and get paid. And Rust is famous now for our back cover being the first time Spawn ever was seen in print, because we had a house ad for Spawn.
Hilarious. Wow.
Because back then Malibu, I don't know if you remember, but Malibu was actually running the Image operation at that point, like printing the books and packaging everything.
No, I didn't know that. Again, this is that period is my blind spot. Absolutely, man. So no, that's very cool. Very interesting.
So we were and this give you an idea of what the boom times were like. Rust got canceled because our first issue only sold 32,000 copies.
Wow. Hilarious. That's fantastic. Yeah, there you go.
Because like Youngblood was selling 300,000 copies.
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, you guys get bent.
Did you ever get scared during the bust period in terms of shit, now what am I going to do? I've talked to Oming about that, and I know that was like a scary, kind of, I don't know.
I didn't, and I don't know why. Probably because I'm an idiot, but I kind of, I did have a moment of doubt, and it didn't come during the bust. It came during a relatively flush time in comics. Whenever anybody talks about that, I just remember going to ProCon. Do you know about ProCon?
Tell me about ProCon. No, not at all.
ProCon was the coolest thing on earth, and it was in the early 90s, and I can't remember who was the brain. Peter David might have been his brainchild, but it was put together. It was like 3 days held before WonderCon. And it was just a convention for pros only. And it was just working pros. And
just like an insider show, so no attendees or anything.
There are no tables even. It was just conferences and schmoozing.
Interesting.
And it was the best. It was so incredible. And I learned some. I went to lectures by all these guys I really respected and admired, and saw panels from all these creators that I'd only been like abstract in my mind, and I finally got to meet all these people, so it was really exciting.
Some of the names. Give us some of the names.
Well, the story I want to tell you about.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
everybody was there. So, I mean, anybody that was working in 1993 can tell you about ProCon. It's where I met Alex Ross and, all these guys that would later be huge. But the reason I brought it up was I went to a sort of a chalk talk by Joe Kubert.
Wow.
Yeah. And he broke down Tor for us, like how he laid out a page of Tor.
Wow.
And we were all just like, We were all looking at the burning bush, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My God. Absolutely.
But he said something there during that thing, because it was, comics were going up and down, up and down, up and down. And he was like, look, I've been doing this since I was 12 years old. I've been through the death of comics 6 times. Comics has died 6 times.
Yep.
And we're still here having a convention.
That's excellent. And literally, you're right. And I want to even give more background because people might know Sergeant Rock and Joe Kubert, his long association with DC. You mentioned Tor. Joe Kubert was with one of the famous busts of the 1950s at St. John that ushered in 3D comics and was a big deal for about a year. And much like 3D movies, kind of collapsed in a big house of cards. And Joe was one of the principal guys over at St. John. So, yeah.
Right. So he'd seen it all. And he sort of gave me this, at the time, he gave me this perspective like, this too shall pass.
That's awesome.
And I never had that fear about the business doing me in until and we're coming back around to Kitchen Sink, because I was drawing a Crow book for them. And this is after Swamp Thing. And they had there are 2 licenses for Crow. There's an Eric Draven license, and then there's a spin-off license for other characters who maybe have the spirit of the Crow descend upon them. And so we were doing that license at Kitchen Sink, and Kitchen Sink sort of went out of business and they owed me a lot of money. And
wow.
I also about that time, and I could kick myself for it, but right after Swamp Thing, Stuart Moore, my editor, offered me like a couple of really great books at DC, and I was just like, that's not for me,
Wow.
Because I don't know what's wrong with me, but they had that science fiction imprint Helix about that time, and I was like, that's not for me. I'm gonna try to do my own thing.
That was early Dan DiDio, one of his initiatives when he became executive editor at DC. I want to say, go on. I'm sorry.
And I had my own indie book called The Wretch around that time, and The Wretch had just been nominated for an Eisner. So I thought, I was really full of myself. I thought, I'm going to go out and make my own way a little bit. And I wound up doing this Crow book, and that went under, and they owed me a lot of money. And I was also storyboarding for Batman, the animated series, like its second incarnation.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, no, it was great. And they needed adventure storyboarders so badly that they would take a guy doing it remotely from Iowa.
That's true. That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah. But at that time, there was also a guy stealing paychecks for the out-of-state talent out of the mailroom. So
wow.
I had these 2 double whammies hit at the same time, which was Kitchen Sink went out owing me money, and somebody at Sony was stealing my paychecks. And I was like,
shit.
You know what? I might have to go work at the lumber yard,
Yeah.
I might have to go, and I just turned 30. I was like, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I better get a straight job. And then right around the corner came, I wrote a book called The Coffin.
Yes.
With Mike Huddleston at Oni.
Mm-hmm.
And I got Green Arrow right after that. And in short succession, like right after that, in my darkest moment, I got Green Arrow, and James Cameron optioned The Coffin at the same time. And that sort of kind of brought me back from the brink. But yeah, I think everybody has a moment like that where they're tested.
Sure.
And I tell you, the best way to get around it is to be married to somebody with a good straight job.
I've heard that story before, and I completely understand.
My wife's a school teacher, and if we didn't have that sort of stable, that was the 3rd strike. Actually, my wife had taken a year off to raise our daughter, so it was sort of like strike 3 in my terror, because she wasn't working either. So, but yeah, everyone has that moment, and in a way, I was sort of like, it doesn't really. I recently counseled a friend about this who's having a hard time, that even if I had to go back to being a non-pro it would not diminish my desire or love for making comics. And in some ways, I'd almost see it as liberating because I could do a straight job and then come home and make the comics I wanted to make.
Yes.
No compromise in terms of what I wanted to work on. Because believe me, even today, I have jobs that I take that are in comics that I consider my day job.
Sure. Sure.
And I have other comics that I do that are closer to my heart. And then I would just, it's just a matter of changing the way I was thinking about it. My day job would be a real day job instead of a comics day job. But luckily things came around and, Green Arrow sort of catapulted us into the mainstream consciousness of comic book buyers.
Absolutely. And you stayed on the book after Kevin was done, and you were with Brad's run as well.
Yeah, and Judd Winnick's after that. So
I forgot, and shame on me, of course, with Judd as well. Tell me about working with Brad, because that was Brad's first comic, and coming from novels and everything, and that again, first time I was aware of Brad, and it's funny, especially given where his career is currently, and especially the stuff he's doing with Iliopolis, those great kids biographies, and about to do the PBS animated series and stuff. But how was it working with Brad?
Really great, because I had known of him through his novels, and it was kind of fun. And I told my mom who I was working with, and she got all excited because it was finally somebody that she knew about that Hilarious. I didn't.
Yes,
and but he was a kid then too.
Yeah,
but it was a breeze because he was I was like, what's this guy going to really know about comics? And turned out he was a bigger nerd than anybody else on the book.
Yes,
he knew all sorts of stuff that I'd forgotten. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess that's right. That did happen to Green Arrow. You're right. So he was bringing back all this stuff that I'd never, and I'd consider myself a lifelong comics, dyed in the wool comics fan, and he knew stuff I didn't know.
That's hilarious. That's fantastic. And then and another person I was interested in hearing what it was like working with was Devin Grayson, because then you went to Nightwing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Right after that. And it was such a like, and it was definitely like, I felt like I wanted that change. Like Andy and I were like, Green Arrow is fun and Green Arrow is a blast, but we've been here like 4+ years and it's probably time to go. And we didn't know that like DC didn't feel that way. Like DC was sort of like, oh, you're leaving? Why? And we were sort of like, oh, we thought you'd be sick of us by now. Like we thought every second that we spent on this book was borrowed time.
Interesting. Wow.
Because we were so outside of what was normally like it was DC's #1 book for not the entire time we were doing it, but like for Kevin's run on it, pretty much the entire time we were close to DC's #1 book.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that was one of the huge breakthrough 2000 books.
Yeah, and I remember it's about the time Doug Mahnke was drawing Justice League also. And I mean, now Doug's style is, everyone, it's totally accepted by everybody. But at the time it was an outlier too.
Interesting.
And we were at like some Minnesota con or something. We're like, you ever think you and I would be drawing DC's 1 and 2 books? Guys like as weird as us would be drawing DC's 1 and 2 books. And it was something there. But like, I wanted to get away from that and do something. I mean, Andy and I we were dying to do a Bat book because Andy's a longtime Bat guy and everybody wants to do Bat stuff.
Sure.
And the closest they could get us was Nightwing. So it was fun to go work on that for a while.
No, that's cool. That's excellent, man. That's the thing. That's really when I became aware of you guys was Green Arrow and Nightwing, certainly. So, and that's, and then Andy went off and did Union Station with a young unknown Chris Somney.
Right.
And, and you started getting more writing work as well.
Well, he did Capote in Kansas.
Excuse me. That's right. Yeah. Union Station was, Eduardo Barreto. Right.
Right.
Yes. Shame on me. Okay. Yes.
Right.
And it was Capote in Kansas that caught my eye with.
And we were both sort of writing stuff at the time too, and we really wanted, Nightwing. Like I don't want to denigrate it in any way because it was a great experience, and Devin really knocked herself out on it. But that was our day job, and our night job was writing books.
Sure,
we really wanted to go out and create our own properties.
Definitely. So what was some of the stuff that came after that? Because that's around when I think we started talking, and like I said,
after Nightwing, I think Kirkman coaxed me over to do Ant-Man.
Excellent, of course.
We went over and did Ant-Man for a year, which I think we were just ahead of our time. I think if that book had come out in the current market, it would have made a bigger splash. In the world of Squirrel Girls and Deadpools and Gwenpools.
And that was O'Grady, right? That was Eric O'Grady or whatever his name is, the other Ant-Man?
O'Grady. The even bigger piece of crap Ant-Man.
Yeah, he's kind of a douche. He really, everyone loves, certainly because of the movie, everybody loves Scott Lang and everything. And, Henry Pym's your classic Ant-Man. But
but everyone's, Scott Lang was like a thief with a heart of gold. And Eric was like, there's no heart of gold.
Yes.
He wasn't he wasn't a bad person. He was just sort of like, I think I always described it as, the scene where Peter has to lift all the sewer pipes off him.
Yes.
And throw him off and claim his destiny.
Yes.
Yeah, Eric O'Grady be like, forget it.
Was that the first time they did was it the Irredeemable Ant-Man?
It was the Irredeemable Ant-Man, yes.
There you go. Okay, I thought that was the first time that adjective.
I think we were just a little ahead of our time. But
I think you're right.
Because people remember it fondly now, and some aspects of what we did wound up in the movies, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But, so, I've been kicking around Marvel and DC ever since, mostly DC. Mm-hmm. I really haven't done much for Marvel outside Ant-Man, which is always up. But it's just, it's mostly, comics is all about relationships, and it's like who you know and who will hire you, and like pretty much all the people I'm really in sync with are at DC.
I understand. I was always, and I think especially considering for Daredevil 50, you did like a page or two for Bendis because it was a big jam.
Yeah, it's issue. Like a 6-pager. I think I did a 6-pager.
Oh, was it that long? Okay, yeah.
Like the Punisher Daredevil fight, which was a blast to draw.
Yeah, and I'd always hoped that you guys would have wound up doing an arc or two of Daredevil at some point.
Yeah, that would have been fun. But I think my style at that time would have been such an outlier compared to like Malev's style. And
that's true.
Or Mac's style, the guys who were drawing at that point. I'm a cartoonist. Like even on that anniversary issue, when you flip it open, my segment sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, but I like that. I mean, that's the thing. I thought it was interesting.
Too. I love drawing. I mean, I make no apologies for the way I draw. It's just that I realize it's not in sync with some certain aesthetic established at certain places. So.
But it's certainly now after Wade and Somni kind of established a bit of a bouncier style, and again a Toth inspired style and everything. I could anyway, but yeah, it's true. Honestly, man, I was like, oh, that's cool. Look at that. There's Phil and Andy. That's excellent.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
I think Bendis told me about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I even remember we were drawing it in a hotel room in San Diego because we were trying to keep Green Arrow on time, and we were just dying to get this 6-pager done on time. So I think we were at one point, Andy and I were just up in the Omni, during San Diego drawing comic book pages, and that was that story.
That's excellent, man. That's so funny. So, again, now have we covered what's going on for today with Stronghold and the upcoming Oni?
Stronghold and the Oni thing, and in this fall, I have a new image book coming out that I'm drawing, called The Family Tree that Jeff Lemire is writing.
Excellent! Wow, very interesting. That's another great combination, man. That's wonderful. Very excited about that.
Really cool. It's a really neat story, and it's really like Jeff and I are like on the same wavelength, aesthetically. And
Yes.
in the story too, we're kind of like darker stuff, but also very family based and very rural. And yeah, that's all. It's right in both our wheelhouses. So yeah, the family tree really represents a lot of what people are sort of ready to see from both Jeff and I, except for we're together.
That's excellent. No, that's terrific.
It's a double dose, and it'll. I think it's slated to start coming out in October, and we're just trying to bank a lot of issues before it comes out, because we don't ever want to run late. And I'm being inked by my good friend Eric Gapster on that.
That's excellent, man. I'm really glad to hear that. I'm glad you're. You know, we want both sides of Phil Hester coming out in comics, both art and writing.
That's true. And then lately, I've been doing a lot of for DC. I've been doing a lot of I don't know what to call it, storytelling doctoring, storyboarding. I've been laying out a lot of books for other artists who are either new to comic storytelling or late.
Understood. Sure.
And they need a little help. And I sort of jump in and I'll take a script and thumbnail it out for them and then hand it off to them, and they'll do the finished art from that.
I understand. Giffen, I know, certainly did. Well, I remember him doing that during 52 out of necessity, but also, I mean, that's great. And also that's a great way to help newer people, getting started and everything too. Wonderful.
And I think Larry Hama does it too sometimes for him. And I also just wrote an inventory story of a book for them that they asked me to go ahead and thumbnail that way as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that was fun. And I was like, boy, I want to work that way all the time. I want to write and thumbnail books for you, and that's it.
Cool.
And not do all that pesky drawing.
Would we possibly, as one of your day jobs, see you writing a DC Universe book?
Boy, I wish. The one I just wrote, I don't think I should say what it is in case they don't need it.
Understood.
But it's a book that's running late, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus.
Sure.
But I just wrote and drew a Commandy story that was in the their Christmas special.
Oh, that's excellent, man. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and that was a blast.
I bet.
Wanted to work on Commandy for a long time, and Alex Antone is a great editor, and he hooked me up with that gig, and it was very fulfilling.
Did you just write it, or did you get to draw it as well?
I wrote it and drew it, and Andy got to ink it, so it was kind of
I'm going to have to find that. That's fantastic.
It was kind of a little, bucket list thing for all of us.
Absolutely, man. No, that's great. I want, at first I thought you might have said that you did one of the issues of the Commandy Challenge. And,
no.
Yeah, I understand. But no,
just the Christmas special.
I understand. Yeah. But yeah, being a Kirby fan and stuff, yeah, I bet that was a bucket list assignment.
Yeah, the blast. And right now I'm helping out on a as yet unannounced graphic novel for one of DC's new imprints, those new younger reader imprints they have.
Yes.
And so they're hiring a lot of illustrators that aren't, necessarily familiar with storytelling. And so I'm sort of helping kind of shepherd one of those younger artists.
Fantastic. That's great. I know Art Baltazar is working on, it's called Superboy of Smallville. And they've already announced everything. And that's going to be one of their young adult books. Yeah,
he's a no-brainer.
Oh, yeah.
I'd hire him. You spend one around them.
But I could see you doing. Would you ever want to do him or Iliopolis in terms of doing more kid stuff?
Oh yeah, I think I've from a story standpoint, I've written more pitches like that. Than I feel like I should be drawing.
Okay.
I've written they're all in the pitch stage, but I've written a lot of kid friendly books. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of fun to see that market sort of being recognized by the big two now, because they see the kids just pouring into the Scholastic book fairs to buy, those Dogman books and Raina's books.
Yeah, Renee Telmarga, sure.
Yeah,
very cool.
Hey, those kids could be buying Teen Titans.
It's true. No, you're right about that, and it's a very ambitious. And I'm glad they're doing it, because I think you're right, and I think that is a better way to suck in comic book readers than what we grew up with in terms of the Saturday morning cartoons and things like that. So
yeah, or sending kids out and saying, "Hey, we know you never go outside of your house to buy anything, but we want you to go outside of your house and buy some comic books at these, like, God bless them, but there's, who knows where your comic shop is in your neighborhood,
For real.
And you've got to send these kids out to try to find those. And I kind of applaud them.
No, I agree. And I was going to ask, given that and everything, because, and for, you're in Iowa, and are you in Iowa City?
I'm about 40 minutes outside of it.
There you go. So yeah, I mean, like, how far away is a local comic store?
40 minutes. So it's like,
yeah,
it's a great comic shop. It's a comic shop I've had since I was a sophomore in college. It's been my shop through, I don't know, 6 locations.
Understood.
But,
yeah.
It's Daydream Comics in Iowa City, but it's,
I'm sorry, say it again, because we had a Skype hiccup and people might not have heard the name of the store.
Daydream Comics.
Oh, one more time.
Daydream.
Adrian's
Daydream.
Comics. Okay, now I'm with you. Or yes. Daydream.
Daydreams, yes. And but like putting them in like Scholastic book fairs or, letting kids get them online, that's how you get the people that will comics will grow up. And that's what we need.
Absolutely. No, 100%, bud. I have a feeling our Skype connection is getting temperamental. I was going to ask you what shows you're going to be at this year.
The only one that's I have a little one in Grand Island, Nebraska, coming up.
Okay.
And then I have, and I will also be Planet Comic Con this spring too.
Planet Comic Con.
That's my main.
Yeah.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Again, I have a feeling Skype is fucking with us. So
we're on borrowed time.
Exactly. So but this is an excellent conversation. And again, Stronghold out this week. In fact, out today, Wednesday. So make sure you pick that up. And more coming in the fall from Phil Hester, from Oni, and some other things, I guess, in the pipeline. I'm
inescapable.
Yes, and excuse me, it was the Lemire series that's going to probably come in the fall. So
you can't. You try to keep me out of your comic book collection, but you can't.
Well, always a pleasure, bud. I hope to see you soon, and I'm glad we had this chance to chat.
Yeah, me too, and I hope I run into you on the con scene sooner than later.
Great observations from Phil Hester. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation here on Word Balloon, brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. If you'd like to subscribe to Word Balloon, I try to entertain you each month with great conversations like the one we just had with Phil. We have an additional episode out today with Dan Brereton talking about a Kickstarter that he's doing for Giant Killer, an old DC title that he's brought back and tricked up into some pretty cool hardcover editions, including a slipcase edition. And it's a great talk about kaiju monsters, and also some great thoughts, too, for up-and-coming writers and artists. Some things to think about when you're writing your first stories. Stan Brereton, also on today's Word Balloon. And the League is helping me out, presenting Word Balloon each week with new episodes. If you'd like to subscribe, you can go to patreon.com/wordballoon, or you can go to our front page at wordballoon.com, click on the Patreon ad. Thank you very much, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by Aftershock Comics. Great titles coming from Aftershock Comics like Animosity, A Walk Through Hell, Dark Ark, Baby Teeth. This year, 2019, is the year of reading dangerously. New titles on the way, things like Oberon from Ryan Parrott, Dark Red from Tim Seeley, Out of the Blue and Horde. Lots of great stuff. Of course, Stronghold, the conversation we had today with Phil Hester. In the weeks ahead, we'll be talking to more Aftershock creators about their books. But if you want more information, you don't have to wait. Check out full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond codes on these books to order through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. Thanks again for listening. More great conversation coming in the days ahead. Still plenty of February left to give you more talk right here at WordBalloon.com. Until next time, Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2019.